Congrats and welcome to this edition of the Metal Lab podcast with me, Jonesy, and Tom here. So Tom, how's life been for you since last podcast?
Yeah, it's been really cool, discovering new underground metal. Obviously, we got something to chat about that we were on.
Yeah, so we were fortunate enough to have a chat with the guys over at Northwich Radio, and that was just a fantastic opportunity to obviously spread the Metal Lab love. So if you get a chance, head over to there. Then what was it?
Mighty Rock Show on a Monday night.
Fantastic.
Nicky Clifford, 8 till 10.
And when we listened to him, there was just a really nice, good mix of metal. So yeah, if you get the opportunity, have a listen. So Tom, what are we talking about this time on the podcast?
Well, I think our theme this week is what defines metal.
Okay, well, I'm guessing you're not talking about the elementals of metal, but in fact the rocking metal that we all love to hear. So
well, yes, of course. I mean, I think a lot of people define the 70s as the birth of true heavy metal. You had obviously very sort of similar to our last podcast. You had a lot of the symbolism of the devil horns, and the satanic symbols in the 70s.
So when you talk about bands in the 70s, who is it then that you would credit with sort of being the formation of that, or do you think it was a section of bands and music that was coming together at that time?
I think the sort of the birth of it was Black Sabbath and Deep Purple.
Yeah.
They were the first sort of true bands that I believe defined in the 70s what true metal was all about.
Yeah, there was a difference in the way that they was playing their guitars. There was that chuggingness, there was that almost ethos starting to come with it, in the fact that it was anti-establishment in a way that we define with some of that. So who we're going to be having as our first band on this episode?
Okay, so we have a Northampton 5-piece and they're called Siderian. They released their album Origins in 2018, and the track we're going to play from that album is With the Tides.
Let's go.
Clinging on to power that you stands from nothing. How can you find friction night? Flock will follow every order. Flock will follow
So Tom, carrying on with our theme of what defines metal, what is it that for you defines metal then?
Yeah, I mean, if we just go back to the 70s, I mean, if you can imagine the reaction, obviously, in 1969, around that time, when Tony Iommi from Black Sabbath, he was, I think, one of the first people ever to cut the speaker cone to get the distortion sound.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and if you can imagine then, there was no one had ever done anything true sound like that.
No, I know there was obviously the idea of just overdriving your guitar amp, which is where obviously we get the overdrive sound from. So yeah, so I know that, but no, that's interesting. So there's the deliberate sort of mutilation of the equipment in order to get the sound that he wanted then.
Could you imagine though in '69 to hear a track from Black Sabbath and that do. People, I mean, what I read, some people thought it was like the devil coming, because they'd never heard anything that heavy and distorted before.
Yeah. Well, that's sort of where the heavy metal term come from, wasn't it? The sound of
Definitely.
Metal dropping
and being a band, I think they were from Sheffield, Birmingham. Yeah, they were from Birmingham. It was a very working man sort of city anyway. So it was what they were all about. Black Sabbath.
Yeah, very true. So okay, so from that sort of era then, and you were saying it was sort of the sound that was there, that was coming out. So what else is it to you that defines it? Is it just the fact it's got those powering guitars, or is there more to it than that?
Yeah, I think it is. I mean, you've got to compare it to a lot of today's stuff. I mean, you've got now bands that are like Christian metal, and bands like Skillet and Insomnia, and can you really compare that to sort of 70s metal, the distorted sounds? And now this is where you start putting it into different categories, and
Okay, so given that, is it, so then what is it then that you think separates them from that? Is it the message then? So is that something that's important?
Yeah, I think more of the 70s, it's a lot of the strong expression, and the faster music and just the whole like distortion and power chords. Nowadays the modern stuff isn't as heavy.
Do you know what I think? Okay, so well, let's put that to a little bit of the test then. So let's hear some more modern day metal. So who have we got up next?
Okay, so we got a band from Liverpool. They're a young and up and coming thrash metal band, and they're called Devil's Henchman. They released their first EP in 2020 called Built by Hate, and that's the track that we're going to be playing tonight, Built by Hate.
Let's go.
So that was Devil's Henchman, and the track was Built by Hate. Amazing track that was, really good, very good, very good band. So I think it's quite interesting because I read an article about Tommy Iommi in his early days, and he said that he was listening to a composer called Gustav Holst.
Oh, okay.
This is where the classical sort of element comes into metal as well. And he was listening to The Planets, Mars the Bringer of War, and he said that this inspired him to bring the sound into sort of the sound of Black Sabbath. Now, if you go back to the original Gustav Holst, he released this track in 1912. So, does metal then go further back in in the era of what we think the 70s?
Well, I think this then comes to the point. So, if there's, you were saying, like a distinction between, say, Christian metal and then things like early metal like Sabbath, and again those earlier influences, does that get us closer to what metal really is then? Is it just an expression, or is it a sound?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, Geezer he said that what he found is when he was listening to the Gustav Holst stuff, there was a lot of sort of powerful expression. You could hear some power chords and stuff in there, and obviously that's what inspired him to actually write the track Black Sabbath.
Yeah, well, obviously the idea of like lots of the fast violins and things like, if you listen to any Bach or anything like that, and Vivaldi, and you hear just the playing and how the fastness of it, you can see the comparison of that to some of the modern day, especially bands like Dragon Force. If you think about how they go, I could totally imagine that being taken back into some classical piece and somebody just listen to how fast I can go, listen to this.
Definitely.
Okay, so let's listen to another track then. So who have we got coming up next?
These are a South African band from Durban called Truth Decay, and very big supporters of the Metal Lab.
Yes, they are. Thanks, guys.
Yeah, amazing. So I first discovered them on the Berg Studio France to Planet show, and they were in the top 5 of the South African Metal Madness week, so that was a great award for them. And then they came on to our Battle of the Bands, and they won that as well, so it's a great acclaim for them. So they have a 2-track EP out called Modern Day Illusion, and that will be the track that we're playing tonight.
Let's go.
Has lost its definition. Truth, a modern day disgrace. Lies forever hold their presence. Glowing from a screen onto your face.
was Truth Decay with Modern Day Illusion. So Tom, obviously, so you're talking about how metal obviously has its influences, and it's not necessarily just the sound, and it's not necessarily just the guitars. So does that mean that anything can be metal?
I think metal overall is a bit of a parasite. It can sort of attach itself to all different genres. You know, you can do it with pop, you can do it with rock, you can do it with classic. You know, I mean, if for instance, an example, if you took an Ed Sheeran track,
Yep.
and you put a bit of distortion into it,
So would that be enough to make it metal though?
it probably would, I think.
So what about, but then we also need the percussion to go with it, the growling vocals. Could you leave
Not really,
his vocals and just metal up the music? Would that be enough?
Yes, because if you look at all the different genres out there, we have, you know, your classical genres and everything. So I truly believe that the distortion is from the 70s when,
Right.
you know, Geezer cut the cone.
Okay.
That is the distortion is what sort of defines the whole of the metal. You know.
Okay, so without that sound, you don't think there would be metal?
No.
Okay, that's interesting. Okay, so let's listen to a band that definitely does use some distortion, and these guys are actually from my own hometown, where we grew up. So who's the band?
Yeah, it's Vendetta UKHC. Again, some really big followers of the Metal Lab. We've seen these guys countless times all over the UK. They've been around for about 20 years now. I think they had their 20-year anniversary a couple of years ago that we went to. Yep. They've got a new frontman called Tom Amos, who's brought new life to the band, changed the sound completely. And they've released their first full-length album, which is called Laws of the Brotherhood. So the track that we're going to play tonight off that album is called We're Here.
Let's go.
show these motherfuckers how it's done. Stay true, be free. How else you gonna be?
Vendetta UKHC with We're Here. So Tom, like I said, we seem to have taken it down to distortion being the main sound and the main thing about metal. So if we took a metal song and stripped away all of that distortion, what do you think we would be left with if it isn't necessarily metal without the distortion?
Probably just more of a composition of scales, really. Do you not really think so?
Well, but then that's anything. If you take it, if you don't have the recording of it,
of course,
then that could obviously truly be anything. But do you think there's anything so inherently metal about, say, an acoustic version of a metal song?
I just think truly that like the hallmark of metal is the distorted guitar, and the speed of the guitar that's played. That's my definition of what I believe what defines metal.
Okay, interesting. So for any of you metal lab rats out there who want to weigh in on this discussion and give us some of your ideas on what it is that you think really defines metal, then make sure you come and drop a comment on the Metal Lab YouTube channel or pop over to the Facebook group, become a lab rat, help us spread more of the metal love that we obviously know is out there that helps everybody. And obviously if you want to get involved, then do just become a member. Make sure you check out every Thursday the gig list for any upcoming shows near you. If you're in a band and you want to let us know what shows you've got on, come and let us know. Drop a message on the Facebook group or come onto the YouTube channel.
And if you're an artist or a band and you would like to join our amazing segment, The Battle of the Bands, and if you win, you get a 15-minute airtime interview and a track played, then please either drop us a message on our YouTube channel or send me a private message.
And they can do that on the Facebook group?
They can do it, yep.
Fantastic. So for all your news, reviews and interviews, join us at the Metal Lab,
the home of underground metal.
Let's